Welcome to Behind the Lens, and today I've got somebody who's been behind many a lens here, and that's Joe Wright, director of the current film, Darkest Hour, and one that has been really well received. We were talking, I mean, it's fun to have a movie that people are really liking a lot, and this seems to be one for you, Joe.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
way better than having a flop.
Yeah.
Way better.
Well, it's also something that you are obviously interested in doing, but what interested you in the subject matter of this? Because it's Winston Churchill, and we've seen many things dealing with Winston Churchill in television and movies and stage and all kinds of things. This is very different, but what was it that appealed to you about this?
I guess it was a side of events that I'd never seen before. And it revealed a whole new kind of aspect of his character and this specific moment.
Yeah, it seems to me a very human side of his character. You know, people think of Winston Churchill almost as the statue.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, absolutely. Especially in England, you know, he lives on this plinth overlooking Parliament Square. And the idea was to kind of bring him down off that plinth and meet him face to face and try and see him as a man with all his flaws and with all his wonderful positive attributes and really meet him face to face. And I think that's kind of, it's more useful than just lionizing people, you know, right. Or demonizing. To try and find the humanity in people.
This was a script Anthony McCartan did, and what is your relationship with the screenwriter on a project like this? How do you work with him to get it to the place you want, or was it there when you first got the script?
No, I think generally most scripts I end up doing are about between like 65 to 75% there, and then there's a whole process of development. And really fine-tuning what the film is about, digging out the themes. There weren't so many female characters in the original screenplay, or certainly they weren't as developed, and I wanted to kind of bring them out a bit more. I wanted to make sure that there was a kind of ambivalence towards the debate as to whether we should negotiate or not with Hitler and via Mussolini. So I wanted there to be a kind of sense that the audience were being constantly pushed and pulled. So that takes quite a long time. Then eventually, when we get to production, the script is locked. We go through a rehearsal process. So I rehearse for like 4 weeks with the actors, all the cast. And the script also gets kind of developed further there. And then once we finish rehearsals, start shooting, I try and have the script completely locked so that there are no surprises and that we kind of know what we're doing. I hate the idea of kind of writing as you go.
Oh, that's interesting, because some directors, on the other hand, will love it when they do improv or the actors go off on their own.
No.
That's not you.
No, and it's not me. And to be honest, it's probably not a very English way of doing things. I mean, you know, even the famous Mike Leigh and his improvisational style, his technique, people confuse because they think that the actors are improvising on set. They're not. They improvise in the 6-month rehearsal process, and then the script is locked, and then they shoot the script. You know, I think my job as a director and the actor's job is really to kind of figure out the intention of each scene and try and realize it rather than bringing new intentions.
What about when you're composing shots? You've done a lot of movies. I would say there's an emotional style to a lot of your directing, particularly Anna Karenina. You even described that once as kind of a ballet, in a sense, which I thought was a very interesting way to look at a movie. It's the movement of the camera with the actors and the physical nature of it.
When people call my films painterly, I get a bit upset because what I want my films to be is cinematic, and inherently cinematic. And so for me, it's about, as Tarkovsky said, the sculpting in time. It's about working with time and image and sound and all the wonderful aspects of the craft, of the art, and bringing those together. to realize again the intention of the scene, the intention of the character. And so I'm quite an emotional person, and so I guess my films are quite emotional. But that's just an expression of me, really.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you have many different kinds of movies you've done, but there is that through line I've noticed in a lot of them. And when you say painterly are things, I mean, maybe there's a perception of British cinema being a little more staid than that, and which I don't think, because if you look at some of the great British films, but if they say that, I don't think they're seeing that of what you're bringing to it. And Darkest Hour is a perfect example of that, because you're taking this, like I say, a very statue and turning him into a human, breathing human being. And this movie moves. It's like exciting. It jumps off the screen.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of, I had this idea that it could run as a sort of political thriller.
Yeah.
And the whole thing has a ticking clock to it.
It's one very distinct time period that you're dealing with here.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything, therefore, is bent to that aesthetic, really. Yeah. The lighting or the editing, the music, even the way Gary moves, the performance is, has a kind of pace and a rhythm to it, an urgency to it.
To have an actor like Gary Oldman, I mean, how easy does that make your job?
It may be. I mean, yes, it makes my job easier in terms of, he's, in my opinion, one of the greatest actors alive, and so that you're going to get a great performance. At the same time, there's a kind of pressure because it's Gary Oldman, and so therefore, everything else I have to be as great as Gary Oldman.
Now is the time to negotiate in order to obtain the best conditions possible. Hitler will not insist on outrageous terms. He will know his own weaknesses. He will be reasonable.
When will the lesson be learned? When will the lesson be learned? How many more dictators must be wooed, appeased, good God, given him mixed privileges, before we learn? You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth.
When your first film, I actually met you around this time when you did Pride and Prejudice, your first feature film that was nominated for several Academy Awards. It got instant acclaim. What kind of pressure does that put on you for what you go do next when you have that kind of out-of-the-box success? And then you followed it up with another one that was even bigger in terms of awards recognition, which was Atonement.
I guess with those two, someone at the time said to me, enjoy this because it won't always be like this. And I thought, but I thought it will for me. The arrogance of youth, the fool. And I discovered that it wasn't always going to be like that, and that one's career changes and things develop, but I'm excited at the moment because I feel like I've entered a new phase of my creativity. After a lot of films which were quite sort of baroque, let's say, in their aesthetic and so on, I've kind of begun to think about honing down and trying to be as simple as possible, just remembering that it's story first, actor second, director third, that we are at the service of the story to find those intentions and realize them for an audience, and to try and keep it simple. And so I'm really excited at the moment about this next phase. I'm thrilled about it, and yeah. It's exciting times.
I'll tell you one thing I love about your films too, tracking. You're a master of the tracking shot. And of course, it's interesting to note, in Atonement, you did like a 5-minute shot, right?
Yeah.
In Dunkirk.
Yeah.
In the middle of that film.
Yeah.
And now, here you are sort of dealing with the opposite end of that with Darkest Hour, and then we have another movie, Dunkirk. How do you think the coincidence of two films with the completely opposite intentions, it seems?
Yeah. to quote Charlie Brown, it's too coincidental to be a coincidence. No, it's a strange thing. I don't know. I mean, I was interested in seeing the same piece of time from a completely different angle. You know, from doing Atonement to this. Also, a film about words in a way as well, about a writer. Churchill, the writer, and
which people never thought of him as.
No, and I think that's one of his greatest achievements is his writing. Really, he wrote more words than Shakespeare, and so then to then realise that there was this Dunkirk film coming out, I was kind of nervous at first because I thought, I wonder who's playing Churchill, and then discovered that no one was playing Churchill, and but you can't make work whilst looking over your shoulder. You know, you have to just focus on what you're doing and not compare yourself and not, you know, there's no point in comparing or anything like that. You just get on with what you're doing and hope that it speaks to people. Later I went and saw Dunkirk. Once I'd finished my film, I went and saw Dunkirk and was blown away by it. I think it's you know, it's an amazing piece of work and should be absolutely, well, it has. It's gained enormous popularity and success, and that's brilliant.
What you've made is a movie that seems so contemporary for people now because it really shows a leader who came along at the right time and did things, or the course of history certainly would have changed. It's like fate met reality there. Absolutely,
and I think that, you know, it's a film about resistance as well. You know, he resisted tooth and nail the wave of bigotry and hate and tyranny that was Nazism that was moving across Europe, and he was really the only one at that moment to see the importance of that resistance, the duty of that resistance.
Wow. Like you say, it's fun to have a movie people are really responding to, which is obviously every director, every filmmaker makes these things to play to an audience, and so this is one that you sit with an audience and you're happy with what you did?
I don't know if I do make a film to play to an audience. To be honest, I make a film to make a film. I love the process. I love it. I love every aspect of it. I love pre-production, of choosing locations, of working with actors. I love being on set, and I love editing, and it's what I live for, and it's the way I think, and it's what I believe in. I believe, for me, that the process is possibly more important than the product. But if a film does well, then I get to do that process again. If a film does badly, you know, if enough films do badly, then you might not be able to do it again, and that would be the end of my life, really.
Wow. Well, fortunately, you're going to get to do it again.
Yeah, that's
Thanks,
the important
Joe.
thing. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.